Welcome to the Flux Dev Meeting for August 30th.
Hello, everyone. So yeah, we are reviewing some features for the Flux 2.2 minor release that should come later on this year, late autumn, winter time. So first thing on agenda, let's talk with Max about the situation of the digest feature. So for everybody that's not familiar with what this feature is about, so Flux has two controllers: image reflector controller, image automation controller, and users can use these controllers to drive container image updates through via Git. So Flux scans the container registry, finds a new container tag based on some policy that you define, and opens pushes that change to the upstream repo. And from there, people can open pull requests or merge them directly, and so on. And we have this feature for a very long time. And one of the most asked extra feature on top of this is being able to set in Git not the tag, but the upstream OCI digest. So that you can say, I want to run latest, then Flux will see the latest tag, will reflect its digest inside the cluster, and then it will push an update to some YAML file with the new digest in place. Did I get it right, Max?
Yes, absolutely. So like my personal goal with this was to have more like control over what is being deployed. So like a digest is always like it reflects the actual content. So if it changes, even if the tag hasn't changed, the content will have changed. And that's like an indicator of something that might not go wrong. But yes, the usage of mutable tags or like rolling tags is also something that will be enabled with this feature.
From a security perspective, anyone who has followed the cosign 1.0 will understand when they initially had the errors if you try to cosign a label instead of a digest. It's a tag instead of a digest. It's the same issue. You're pointing at a potentially mutable reference, and that's not necessarily secure. So being able to put the digest in the YAML manifest is a requirement for some people.
Right. And in order to do that, we basically have to change both controllers, the image reflector controller and the image automation controller. And the image reflector controller only works in cluster, so it reflects a certain image and it's parts of its metadata in the cluster, so it can be consumed by other controllers. Image automation controller consumes that information and updates the reference Git repository.
Yeah, so in the end, we have a latest digest field in status for the image policy. And if you explicitly put the marker in your YAMLs that you want Flux to patch using the digest, not the tag, you can do that. Max, how is the patching? How are the markers being modified? We have a marker for tag, and now we have a new marker for digest. But what
yes.
about the whole image URL? How is that handled?
Oh, I haven't touched that for a while because we were going back and forth on the reflector controller patch first. But yeah, so the goal is that you can either reference, or maybe it's actually we need 3 markers maybe. So you can reference the image and the digest together, like with 1 marker. You can reference only the digest, and you can reference the tag at digest, right? Maybe we only need 2, and you always, when you say digest, it always uses the tag at digest format, which might make most sense. So we only need 2 additional markers here.
It's also for readability. If you review a pull request, right? You should see, oh, it's latest this new digest, or it's V2 this new digest. Because if you just review some digest, it's like, yeah, you lose the context of versioning and everything, right? So anyway, containerd, Docker, even all Docker runtimes for Kubernetes know how to parse tag Aaron digest, and it will just ignore the tag and use the digest for pulling. So I see no disadvantages of using this format everywhere. The problem I'm seeing now is with markers, right? Because now we have, let's look at the docs a little bit. 1 second. Okay, let me give you the link to where the markers are documented. So we have 3 types, 3 formats. One is policy namespace policy name. And what this does, it replaces a full OCI URL with another one. And this implies the tag. A different format is policy namespace policy name tag, and it will only replaces the value that you set with the tag. And we also have the name, and we can add digest, so replace some value with the digest. But for the first format, how are people going to, if they want to switch to digests in a Kubernetes deployment YAML, which doesn't have the tag or digest as a separate field, it's in the image field, how?
I think what we're saying is that the digest is really only useful if it's attached to the image. And I'm not sure I agree with that, but that would be one way to resolve it.
No, we are not saying that.
Okay.
So we need the new marker that contains URL and digest as well.
So what, like there is a draft PR up in the image automation controller repository, and how it's currently implemented is that you have like a colon digest marker, and you have a colon tag colon digest marker. And the colon digest marker, I think if I don't get my own code wrong, will update the image, the whole image, and the colon tag colon digest marker will only return the tag at digest string. That's the way how it's currently implemented.
So digest returns the whole URL, and tag digest returns only the tag and digest.
Yes. Or we can make it, I don't know, tag plus digest. But it's, yeah, semantically, it's It's a little hard to find a proper name for these markers.
I would go with digest and digest only, because digest only seems less likely to be useful. Even if it's, I don't know where I would put the digest itself. I think there might be a use for it, but it wouldn't
I mean,
be
for
the best one to use
customize
for.
image settings, when you use customize to set the image name and the image tag, there it would make sense, right? Like in a customized configuration file.
Customized configuration file has a digest field. All the Helm charts made by Bitnami have a digest field. All the good charts out there should have a digest field. So we not saying that, oh, only digest is not useful. Is not true. Like all things out there supports digest.
And you might even need it for a config map so that you can pass it along to cosine or something like that.
We also have a digest field in OCI repository, right? So if you want to update OCI repositories for the latest tag, you should use the digest only marker inside the OCI repo, of course. So lots of use cases for just the digest without the URL. Even if
I guess it's clear we need both, right?
Yeah.
You want to update a container image using the image and the digest, and you want to update basically everything else using only the digest or the tag and the digest. So yeah, we need 2 additional markers.
Yeah, because combining tag and digest will not work. Will not work for Flux, will not work for the Bitnami Helm charts, will not work for anything else, because there are basically 3 separate fields. It's image, registry, tag, and digest. Also, Flux itself, you can't just put in our digest field the tag Aaron digest, because Flux will error out. Of course, there's not a digest. The digest should contain the SHA type and the SHA value.
So we actually need 3 additional markers, including only the digest without a tag in front.
Yeah, it gets messy.
I mean, from a code perspective, it's not very hard because there's only a couple of lines of code,
Only
but from an API
perspective that it's hard.
Yes.
Yeah, naming is hard, like everything in programming, right? Naming is... And we have this format that now it feels that is not sufficient, or it's in the way, basically. Yes, okay, we need to... Max, can you summarize this on the image automation controller pull request, right? What we concluded today, that we basically need 3 different markers. Give an example where we need them, and the to-do for this is come up with a marker name for all these variants that we need. So we need first URL that contains tag, contains the digest, and the use case is doing replacements in Kubernetes deployments and other Kubernetes native resources. Then just the digest example will be updating an OCI, Flux OCI repo. And only tag and digest without the image URL. I don't think there is something out there that would work with that. Only that field, tag and digest.
So customize doesn't work with that. So customize has 2 fields for the tag and the digest.
Customize has digest, and it's the digest accepts, so it's separate. It's new tag, new digest. One second.
I see. Okay. Yeah, so maybe we don't need...
We basically need 2, I think. One is the URL, where you put everything in there. and the one is just the digest SHA type SHA value.
So there's one issue with that I can think of. If someone needs to put both of those values together on their own, they won't be able to put both comments on the same line. In case someone needs to construct a string in their YAML file, tag at, in case they ever need it for whatever reason, tag at SHA.
That won't work. No. And from my experience, you can only have a single marker per line.
Yeah, and markers are not templating friendly, and we don't want people to do templates on top of them. So maybe it's a good thing they can't do all sorts of crazy stuff. One second, let me find the customized plugin for image. Image transformer. Yeah, so they have a digest field, which expects only the digest. Like Flux OCI repos, like Helm charts, like everything else, without the tag attached to it. Because you can specify name, tag separately, and digest separately. And they do the composition for you. So you don't what Kingdom was saying. So Customize does it on its own. It knows how to recompile the full image name based on all these fields: name, tag, digest. So let's go first with just 2 new markers. And if someone comes up with a valid use case for having a third marker where we only return tag and digest but without the URL, we'll think about it then.
Okay.
Okay, for the image reflector pull request, I have reviewed today, found the thing that a minor suggestion.
Yeah. I am inclined to make the field not a pointer. So we don't have to check whether it's null or anything like that. I've been running into issues with the tests then where like the field isn't explicitly set because it wasn't there before. So it's an empty string and the API server doesn't accept it. Even when a default is set in the CRD spec, in the Open API spec. So I'm not sure whether we want to make it a pointer or not. I mean, a pointer seems to be more backwards compatible friendly, if that's a word.
Yeah. Yeah, so we need to make the digest reflection policy string pointer.
Okay. And add a never field.
And the never field. Why the never field? When people can just delete the field from the whole field from Git. The problem here is with server-side apply and how things currently work when server-side apply does a merging. If you have multiple managers for the same field, let's say you have applied an image policy with kubectl and you set Flux client-side apply, so Flux will never remove that field. Then you go into your Git repo and you remove the field, it will not be removed from Git, from the server, because there is another manager which has set the field to some value. The only workaround for this is to always offer people a way to explicitly disable some feature by setting a value for the field. If instead of removing it from Git, you set it to never, and you commit that, then customized controller will override the value that was set from some other client, some other manager, right? As for removal, Kubernetes will say, okay, I'm removing customized controller as the manager of this field, but the field stays here because another manager has already set it, right? So that's why I'm not for offering only the possibility of pointer, nil, whatever. I'm also for giving people a way to explicitly disable some feature.
Makes sense. Yeah.
And we all have these examples in a lot of places. For example, if you look at the server-side annotation, the prune annotation, and all of that, it has a disabled value, even if it was the same as deleting that annotation. But in my first implementation was, I don't need disable, I just need enable, right? So people can delete it. Then a bunch of issues with all sorts of other controllers that are adding annotation, other stuff that are other things that are, patching the metadata. So having explicit value for disabling was the solution, and we should do the same here. Okay. And not mention null as something that people will ever set. You can set it to never, to disable it, or remove it from the YAML definition, right? In most cases, if you have a single manager, and if you do correctly GitOps, you don't do edits and so on from other things, removing will work. But as I said, it's not guaranteed. So that's my only suggestion for this pull request. Everything else looks great. I know Sani and Hide had a bunch of comments here. Hide is off for, I don't know, 2 weeks, a month. Sani, do you have time to go over the image reflector controller pull request once again?
Yes, after the end-to-end test setup, I'll go through the pull request.
This week?
I'll update the PR with the comments that Stefan left, basically just adding the never value as a value, and then I'll ping you too. That is ready for review.
Need to rebase solve conflicts.
Yes.
So Sani, I want to hear you say you are reviewing it this week.
Depends on the end-to-end test setup. I think it's not much. It should be done today, tomorrow. I will start going through it. But there are other things that may interfere. But I'll go through it. It may take time. I'll go through it.
Okay. We hopefully move forward and make Max happy about it, even if Sunny does not offer any guarantees. Next discussion is also around image automation. So we have started the Flux controller refactoring, I don't know, almost 2 years ago. And we have two controllers left. Helm controller, which Hide is almost done with that. And image automation controller, which needs a total rewrite of how we deal with status, adopting case status, rewriting all the docs, the new format, and so on. And yeah, I know, Sunny, you tried at some point and you closed that pull request. Can you?
No, I didn't create any pull request. It's still there in a fork of mine in a branch. I found out some ways of organizing the code in a different way, but I could not complete it because last year we were trying to go for GA or V2. So we were focusing on other things.
Is reconciler dev new? The one? No, this is from 2 years ago.
It
Which-
must be in my fork.
Oh, it's a fork, it's not a branch.
It must be in the fork. It was not ready, just had some ideas.
Max, would you want to take this on after the digest thing is merged?
Yeah, sure.
Just to warn you, it's a multi-month effort and it's quite challenging.
Yeah, let's see how far I can push this.
Yeah, so I suggest, so after we merge the digest, I suggest you have a couple of meetings with Sunny. There is a lot of things to dig into and be familiarized with until you write code. I got it very wrong for customized controller the first 2 tries, so I'm my suggestion to you is, yeah, talk with Sunny about it, then read through all the controllers that we currently refactored, and only then try to write code. Because yeah, it's quite challenging, and it's a lot of logic that at first look does not make sense, or we have a quite complicated framework around conditions. When we patch them, we patch them sometimes only in memory, it's never persisted, it's persisted at the end. So there are many gotchas, so to speak. It's
Yeah, I always wondered whether that's something that's specific to how we implement controllers, or it's like more like that's how people should generally build controllers.
Yeah, the status and the condition settings is quite a hot topic in Kubernetes land. I recently have there is an issue on the cluster API. Cluster API is not compatible with Flux due to a race condition. When the cluster API custom resources are created, have no status, case status think is ready, and only afterwards you discover that, oh, it's not ready. My cluster is not even acknowledged. The controller does not even has acknowledged that I want a cluster. Yeah, right. So there are many. We solve that for our own custom resources. I'm trying to convince them to do the same stuff. They have a huge framework around conditions, which they want to give up and adopt the Kubernetes standard conditions, while if you look at what the Kubernetes people are saying, that those conditions are very wrong, they are complicated, nobody understands them. So yeah, it's it's a huge topic. It's not like we are going to change anything around Flux conditions. We have a good framework in place. It works for us. It works with our own tooling, and that's what we care about. So image automation controller should just follow everything that we have in all the other controllers and implement conditions like we have everywhere.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks for the heads up.
Great. Thanks for wanting to work on this. I know it's quite time consuming and frustrating. No one will review that pull request immediately because you'll probably will have to touch like 90% of the reconciliation code. So please don't get upset if it will take time for us to review.
Okay.
Another topic is around Flux Bootstrap. So Max created an issue long time ago, a couple of months back, around having Bootstrap Gitea command. Someone said it will work on it, but it didn't happen. Max, is this feature request? Have you heard people asking for this, or it's your personal desire to have a Gitea Bootstrap, or can you say?
I only talked with Sule about that, and he told me it's not an immediate like customer request or user request he heard. He just thought it's a good way to wrap up the Gitty integration, because we already added it to like go get providers, for example.
Yeah, and we also have commit status updates, right, for Gitea in notification
Yes.
control. We have other integrations with them. Webhooks, receivers. Do we have a receiver type specific for Gitea?
Good question.
Let's
Yes, we do.
like this.
Oh, but it's the same type as GitHub.
Oh yeah, now I remember. They have the same a verification algorithm like GitHub.
I see.
With the HMAC, it's basically the same stuff, so it works the same. Yeah, given that we have receivers, we have commit status update to close up all the Gitea things, we could have also Bootstrap. Not sure how complicated is it to implement. Do we have end-to-end testing in Go Git providers for Gitea?
Yes, we. Wait, let me double check, because I saw some Gitty checks fail, but now I'm not sure if it was E2E tests or just like smoke tests. Yes, we do have E2E tests.
Hey, that's good. So all the operations are already being tested. Oh yeah, it's a fixed Gitea test 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, we're dependent on Gitty.com, unfortunately, because we don't yet spin up our own instance as we do for GitLab, for example. But yeah, generally we do have these tests as we do have for the others.
Okay, so I don't know, it's up to you. maybe after image policy, after we get that done, you want to do there, that should be straightforward and a more easy task to accomplish than the refactoring, or jump directly in refactoring and maybe remove that person that was assigned to the issue, relabel it with help wanted, and maybe someone will take it over. It's up to you.
Yeah, I'll also ping some people who said they would be interested in adding some features, contributing some code.
Can you also create an issue in Go Git providers around switching from the public instance to a self-hosted instance in end-to-end tests?
Yeah, I'll do that right now.
Because I think depending on, I mean, we did that for Minio and it ended up very badly. If every project out there does their end-to-end testing with some public instance, which is for demos at some point, they will end up paying too much money for it and you'll get banned. And I can understand that. So we should be good citizens and run our own instance instead of hitting the one that's for,
Yeah.
I don't know, actual humans, not bots.
Yeah. Granted, the GitLab tests work pretty fine and are very stable
Yeah.
with the on-demand instance. So
yeah, based on that, I would say it should be quite easy if there has some kind of Helm chart or something that we can use to install it in a kind cluster.
Oh, I want to discuss a few things, but we are out of time. Can we stay for 15 more minutes?
Yep, I can.
Okay. Okay. If you have the doc open, the meeting notes, yesterday or a few days ago, somebody opened or last week, pull request around changing the bucket lookup path in source controller. So maybe 2 weeks ago, they created an issue that they use Alibaba Cloud's bucket offering. And I think they have an open source self-hosted version as well. So when they use the hosted version, it's fine, but self-hosted requires them to use the lookup path has to be something else. Should be auto to be able to use it when the server is behind the virtual host, and they wanted to change that configuration. So they created a pull request, adding a new field in the bucket API for lookup path, so lookup configuration. It can be an auto or path. Is there a third one? Two, right?
Yes, auto, DNS, and path with the default path.
So 2 weeks ago when they opened this, I discussed with Hide, and he was not sure why it was hard coded to path. And then yesterday I did some investigation, checking when this was added, and before it was added, it was not configured anything. It was default, which is auto. So if it used to work with auto, it should work with auto even now. And I checked in Minio, have they changed the default anytime? So they introduced auto in 2018. It's still the same, should continue to work. So I left a comment saying maybe you should use auto instead of introducing an API to configure this. Unless there is a really need to expose it, I don't think we need to add another field in the API. And this solves their problem with OSS Alibaba Cloud.
So you are saying that instead of having a lookup type field, we can just go in the code, set the lookup to auto, Auto.
remove it, it will be defaulted to auto, right? And internally, if you check what Minio is doing, Minio is checking when it's auto, it will check for GCP or Azure and Ali Cloud. And if it is any of them, it will go for the DNS thing. And if it's anything else, it will go for path.
What about Minio?
Minio is doing this. Or Minio itself, I think it will go for path. It's checking the domain of the bucket.
Yeah, but Minio is self-hosted, right? You can have whatever domain.
Mhm.
Will it still work?
Sure, why not? If not, if we have a reason, we can change. I think we'll do manual testing to verify that it continues to work before changing this. I have a Minio instance running, I can check. It's my Minio.
We have end-to-end tests with a Minio instance in source control.
No, that doesn't use DNS, right? I have with proper DNS.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah, you have your own DNS with HTTPS, right?
It's behind virtual host. That's it.
Yeah, I fully agree. If that works, we don't need this field. We just, I don't know, maybe explicitly set it to auto in the code and comment why we did that. Maybe link to what automatically path lookup means, have a link to some doc and go with that instead of changing the API for.
Okay. Next topic. Again, so today somebody opened a issue in source controller saying they're doing something weird. If you open the issue, you'll see. So they're pointing the header repository to Bitnami domain, and that I don't know how they are proxying it to something else. So proxying it to VMware, and when the controller connects to Bitnami, it has a certificate with SNI configured, and when it goes to proxies to VMware, domain changes and the TLS handshake fails. I don't know why they are doing this.
Oh, they domain in the middle, right?
So I thought we are setting SNI, that's good. Maybe we should just provide an insecure option. I saw that Helm CLI sets SNI. I think our code sets SNI because Helm does it. But we don't have an insecure option in Helm repository. And there is an RFC which will add a field for setting all these.
Yeah, I remember we discussed adding an insecure field in her repository. It was with the RFC for
004, I think.
Yeah.
Blocking security.
Right. Because we have an unsecure field in bucket and in OCI, do we have it in OCI repo?
I think it was blocked here in Helm, and this eventually did merge. But I think there was more that had to happen, another minor release before it would be usable for us. This PR that I just linked in the chat. I think this is related to what we're talking about.
Yeah, insecure skip verified TLS, yeah. Yeah, so Sun, you need to link to this stuff.
But I think, I don't know, the person who created the issue is asking me, I don't know if they're expecting us to remove that SNI configuration. I think we should not.
Of course not.
Because, and something related to this is, we don't set SNI for image repository in image reflector controller. I was wondering, was there any reason for not setting it in some controllers, but setting it in some?
No, we should have said it.
Okay.
Also in OCI repository, we should say it.
So with the recent changes, OCI is using the common code that is shared with Helm client. So OCI is using SNI, I think. The recently we did some refactoring.
And it will. Oh, so what you can ask these guys is for them to try creating an OCI repository which pulls a chart, because OCI repository object can pull a chart.
Set it to insecure.
Set it to insecure. And if that works, then we have the solution for them. Hey, we are going to add in the next version this field linked to the Helm pull request and so on. But first, give them an OCI repository that has the URL to a dynamic chart. So they can just copy paste that YAML and put in their cluster and see if that reconciles. I don't know. Choose
Do you know
Nginx.
do you know Vietnam has OCI?
Oh yeah, they switch
Oh,
completely
okay.
to OCI now.
Okay.
That's the default. So if you search on Google dynamic charts, you'll end up on their repo where they give you the URL, and I've actually been using. I switched all the my charts to dynamic OCI, and works fine. But I don't have a man in the middle proxy that does all that stuff, right? So
Okay. I'll reply there. Next, next issue, if you click on it, somebody created an issue yesterday asking for a way to change the default Git repository and customization names when you bootstrap. Did you see the issue? And I found that many months ago, somebody else also requested for something similar in Terraform provider.
to change
And
the
when you bootstrap, the default Git repository in Flux system namespace is Flux system, right? And even the customization is, no?
No, the name is not
What's that?
hard-coded anywhere.
It's
It depends
extracted
on
from the
the-
namespace, I think.
Yeah.
People are asking for a way to modify that without changing the namespace.
Yeah, but the reason they are asking for, they don't understand how Flux works. They want to bootstrap Flux more than once in the cluster.
I was thinking about that.
That's the issue. And I'm never for changing this convention, because this convention prevents people from running Bootstrap more than once. Right. Once they figure out they can change the namespace, some of those have done that. Then they came up and say, oh, at the upgrade, we had issues like all the other Flux instances are not working, right? So for all these people, they are misusing Flux. So the solution is not allow them to change anything. The solution is open their eyes to how Flux works and how they should do it. They should create a new Git repo. If they want to onboard a new repository, they should not run Bootstrap on that repository. They should create a Git repo, Flux customization with the CLI, put them in the Bootstrap repo, and encrypt the secret, all of that, all the things that are in the multi-tenancy example, we have there a section on how to onboard tenants and their repos, where it also shows you how to generate the Git repo, the customization, how to encrypt the secret, everything. So there are two types of people confused about this. One type is they didn't understand that Bootstrap is a thing that the cluster admin should run on a dedicated repo, and that's where they should organize stuff. They thought Bootstrap is for their app repos. So they try to run Flux Bootstrap on a repo with, I don't know, gigabytes of data, tens of gigabytes of Git history and so on, and they want to run it like hundreds times, right? So that's one category of new users which misunderstood what Bootstrap is for. And for those, we have to guide them towards, hey, you run it once, then to onboard app repos, you have this procedure. That's one side. Another group of users which are trying to run Bootstrap more than once is for horizontal scaling. And they think that, oh, I'm going to run Flux in multiple namespaces because I have too many hand releases or too many apps or whatever, right? For those people, we have to guide them towards the horizontal scaling and sharding documentation, which again shows you how with just running once Bootstrap, then you can spin up multiple instances that are managing other things, and we don't use namespaces, we use label selectors and all the things that we've documented there. Is never the solution of, oh, let's allow them to change the name so they can run Bootstrap more than once, right?
Okay. I wonder, like, why do they have to use Bootstrap all the time? Bootstrap is just once you get started, right? Once you have the configuration, why do you need Flux Bootstrap all the time? Okay.
Maybe because of the simplicity of deploy keys, because it does everything for you, right? When you have to onboard other repos, then there is no magic thing that will add the deploy key to the app repos. You have to go in there and add them on your own, or have some Terraform script for it, or whatever. So I'm thinking, I also saw requests for people where they say, hey, when I run Flux create source Git, I want Flux after it generates the private key to also create the deploy key on GitHub, GitLab, whatever exactly what Bootstrap is doing. And I'm like, it's a bunch of complexity because all the Git SaaS operations in the Flux CLI are now only for Bootstrap and nothing else, right? Extending them to Flux create commands and all of that feels quite a lot of work. Not sure how useful it is in general, but yeah, that's something to discuss for another time.
Okay. Would you like to interact with that user who asked for this? Like, ask them, what do you need?
You want me to reply to the issue?
Because
okay.
I may not be able to satisfy them with the replies.
Okay,
last
link it. I'll do it.
It's in the document.
Okay.
Last thing. So in source controller, last year when we introduced, or once we did refactoring, we discovered that there is a need to add typed errors, which will have special meaning for what's happening in the reconciliation loop and what should happen at the very end. Like, should an error result in a notification, or should an error be swallowed and not return to the runtime? Or there are many use cases. So we introduced contextual error. So you may have seen error of type stalling or error of type, what's the other one? We have like three different waiting error, and then there is just an error, I think, a generic error. I think. Generic error was added later. There was what was that? There was something very event error. So event error is for telling the overall toolings that this error should be accompanied with a notification or an event which will result in notification. So last year when we added the no reconciliation in Git repository reconciler, we found a situation where we did not want to send notification. We just wanted to log and not want to send notification. So that created a need for an error handling mechanism where it's not about the context, but it's about the code that creates the error should be able to configure what happens with the error. Should this error be logged? Should this error result in an event? Or what? So that resulted in modifying the initial contextual error to action-based error. So that introduced something called a generic error, which can be modified to whatever you want it to be. So because this was a new thing, and because we already merged the no reconciliation in Git repository, which was broken, so I tried to quickly fix it with some patches, and that resulted in this action-based error. And we deployed it only for Git repository. So the other controllers at that time had the contextual errors, only Git repository has the action-based error. And then when you added OCI repository, that also used the action-based error, the new error type. So now, because we'll be releasing Helm to V2, the next release will have, or maybe, but we're approaching it. So I wanted to remove the deprecated error completely. So this pull request removes the deprecated error completely with the new error types in all the controllers. So Helm repository, Helm chart, and bucket are using the new error type. It's just replacing the old event error with new generic error with a constructor, which adds the default values. And while doing this, I discovered a bug in the initial implementation where a generic error by default should not be logged because it's returned to the runtime and the runtime logs it, but we are logging it. So they're like double logs whenever an error is returned to the runtime. but this fixes that. But it was this issue was present only in Git repository and OCI repository because they were using this new type. This fixes that.
Yeah, I've seen this. Why is it still in draft?
I wanted to discuss and wanted to talk to Hide as well.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's I would approve and merge it.
I would like to
I was
like
quite annoyed by those typed errors, so event, whatever reason. Yeah, I never used them.
Has a big history behind it.
Yeah, you can definitely see that source controller was the first controller that got the new condition and events in because it has this, in my opinion, over-engineered, reconciled, summarized, all the crazy stuff are in here.
Reason
I
is
should
it has
try
like
on deleting everything from here and have it like, I don't know how other controllers have it, but yeah.
So
It's a good step forward. Anyway, you're refactoring.
I discuss with Hide like a lot of the times, like why is this source controller so complicated? Because we have to manage like 5 different reconcilers. If it's a small project, it's easier. You have to manage 5 of them. So I think this tooling is in a way necessary because you need all of them to behave common in a similar way, right? Okay, that's the last topic. Over. So
Any other things? We are way over time. No? Okay.
No?
We have a first
Nope.
someone who's here for the first time, I guess. He dropped a message. I don't know if he wants to introduce himself or something.
Sure.
Olakunle. Yeah, this is the first time he's on the call. I've not seen him. But
Yeah,
are you still there?
yeah. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Stefan, Sonny, and Somtochi. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So this is my first time actually signed up. I was looking through the CNCF landscape and I was trying to find my way through the open source community. So I went through and I signed up. I signed for the mail. So I was waiting, expecting to to join the meeting today, and which I did. I wanted to know. I just listened in, clicked some of the apologies for the background noise. Some of the links that have been shared, but like I will still go back and see the repo, how I can contribute and to be part of the team. Thank you. I don't know if you have any question. I'm a DevOps engineer, yeah, but more interested in security. So I would say DevSecOps, area, and looking at working around the container space, orchestration space, Kubernetes, and the likes.
Cool, yeah. Feel free to try out Flux and let us know how it went.
So I'll actually include the repo. I'll start working and seeing what I could do with it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I suggest you take a look at the example. So we have an example repo for Flux that explains how to structure a repo, how to install, for example, first Kubernetes add-ons like ingress controller, cert manager, security, policy, and so on. And only afterwards deploy all the apps and force policy on them and so on. So it's I'll give you the link in a moment. I think it's good.
Thanks for that. I'll be grateful if the link can be shared before the close of the meeting so that I could just.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, then we are done. Have a nice day, everybody. Bye.
Bye.